My name is Olivia Hart, and I was 36 years old when a buyer complaint landed in my inbox about a house sale I had never supervised, never represented, and never agreed to touch, but one that somehow had my real estate license number, my professional bio, and a copied version of my signature attached to the disclosure packet. I was sitting at my desk in Seattle after a first-time buyer workshop, still wearing the navy blazer I used for community presentations, with a stack of disclosure checklists in my bag and the small silver house key from my first honest closing sitting beside my laptop like a quiet reminder of why I had entered real estate in the first place. The subject line read, "Question about undisclosed water damage." I thought it was from one of the buyers who had attended the workshop that evening. I opened it, expecting a basic question about inspection contingencies. Instead, I saw this. "Ms. Hart, since your name is listed as the licensed broker who reviewed the disclosure packet, we need to know why the prior water intrusion and unpermitted electrical work were not disclosed before closing." My stomach went cold before my brain finished the sentence. Attached was a buyer complaint letter from Daniel and Priya Shah, a young couple who had purchased one of my brother Mason's flipped houses. Their little daughter was in one of the photos, standing beside a wall where the fresh paint had bubbled from hidden moisture. In the packet was a seller disclosure form with my name on it. Olivia Hart, licensed broker. My license number, my copied signature. Not my current signature, but one lifted from an old disclosure checklist I had used years earlier when Mason begged me to just show him what a real file should look like. Before I tell you how I walked into a real estate commission review 5 days later with lockbox logs, listing screenshots, inspection photos, copied signature proof, and my mentor's handwritten note in one folder, tell me this. What time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I want to know how far this story travels before I tell you what happens when a family says build wealth, but means borrow your clean license, hide the damage, and let you absorb the complaint when the wall starts leaking. Because the buyer complaint was not the beginning. It was only the first official document honest enough to say what my family had been doing for years. Mason Hart was my older brother by 2 years, and for as long as I can remember, my mother Beverly described him as ambitious, in the same tone other people use for kind. Mason was ambitious when he sold candy at school and forgot to pay back the friend who fronted the money. Ambitious when he sublet a room he had no permission to sublet. Ambitious when he bought a damaged motorcycle and claimed he could flip it, then left it in our parents' garage for 11 months. Ambitious when he started watching real estate videos online and suddenly called himself an investor. My father Grant was not as openly worshipful as my mother, but he was the kind of man who made excuses sound like balanced opinions. Mason has pressure, he would say. He has a family to build for. You have to understand that. By family, he meant Mason's wife Lauren, their 2 children, and the future my parents had decided mattered more than anyone else's present reality. I had no husband, no children, and a real estate license I had earned by doing the boring parts correctly. In my family, that meant I had less to protect and more to lend. Beverly called me our real estate expert in public. In private, she called me cold, too professional, and unable to understand what Mason was trying to do for his kids. That was the family pattern. Mason took risks. Beverly turned the risks into vision. Grant turned legal problems into stress. I turned chaos into clean paperwork before anyone official saw the mess. My childhood trained me for that role before I knew I was being trained. When Mason missed school forms, I reminded him. When he lost money, I helped explain it. When he broke a neighbor's window with a baseball and tried to blame another kid, I was told not to make him look bad because he already felt terrible. When he got into a rental dispute in his 20s after a failed sublet, I spent a weekend reviewing the lease and writing a response letter because my mother said, "You're good with serious things, Olivia." At 28, I missed a broker training opportunity because Mason called in a panic over that same sublet and begged me to help before the landlord took him to court. My mother said Mason had more at stake because he was trying to become someone. That sentence stayed with me. Trying to become someone. As if I had not already become someone by working, studying, saving, building a career, and refusing to make other people's disasters my identity. My anchor in real estate was Nora Whitfield, my first managing broker. Nora was precise, elegant, terrifying when someone lied in a listing file, and deeply protective of buyers who did not yet know what questions to ask. She taught me that real estate was not about smiling beside sold signs. It was about records, disclosures, inspections, agency, signatures, and the ethical weight of telling people the truth before they spent their entire future on a house with hidden damage. A broker's signature is not decoration, she told me during my first year after I called one disclosure issue minor. It tells a buyer someone stood behind the record. When I closed my first transaction cleanly, a small starter home for a single mother who cried when I handed her the keys, Nora gave me a small silver house key on a plain ring. It was not from the actual lock. It was symbolic, polished, and almost too shiny. Inside the little box, she had written, "Never let your name open a door you did not inspect." I kept that key on my desk because it reminded me what honest work felt like. It would later sit beside the buyer complaint my family wanted me to make disappear. Mason's flipping business started with one cheap house outside the city and the kind of confidence that grows best in people who have never sat through a real disclosure lawsuit. He liked the visual part. Before photos, after photos, staging, gray flooring, black fixtures, kitchen islands, captions about turning neglected homes into dreams. He did not like the parts that mattered when the cameras were gone. Permit history, moisture intrusion, electrical work, foundation notes, repair invoices, seller disclosures, inspection responses. He called those paper friction. I called them the difference between a sale and a complaint. He asked me for help at first in ways that seemed harmless. Can you look at this disclosure wording? What does known defect really mean? If I fixed water damage, do I still mention it? How much permit stuff is overkill? Every question had a correct answer, and he disliked all of them. Yes, disclose past water damage. Yes, disclose unpermitted work. Yes, keep invoices. Yes, buyer trust matters more than the story you want to tell. I gave general advice because I wanted him to stop being dangerous, not because I wanted responsibility. I texted him clearly after the second house. I am not your broker, supervising broker, listing agent, disclosure reviewer, or license support. Do not use my name, license number, signature, bio, brokerage, checklist, or any statement implying I reviewed or approved your sale files. Mason never answered that text. My mother did. She wrote, "Why do you always make family feel like a legal threat?" That was Beverly's talent. She could turn a boundary into an insult without touching any of the facts. The inciting wound happened at Mason's sold sign celebration dinner. He had just accepted an offer on the Shaw House, though I did not know then how much had been hidden beneath the fresh paint. My parents hosted dinner at a waterfront restaurant because Beverly said Mason deserved a real moment. There were relatives, a couple of neighborhood investor friends, Mason's wife Lauren, and my parents beaming like Mason had solved homelessness by installing matte black cabinet pulls. Beverly made a toast before dessert. She said Mason was creating generational wealth, teaching his children what courage looked like, and helping families find homes they could afford. Then she turned toward me with a smile that was already sharp at the edges. "And Olivia should be grateful too," she said. "Her unused license finally helped family wealth." I put my glass down. My license is not involved in Mason's sale. Mason smiled like I had made a small joke. Beverly kept going. "You have no kids, Olivia. Let your license help someone building something for an actual family." The table went quiet in that sickly, polite way people behave when cruelty is socially inconvenient. Lauren stared at her plate. My father muttered, "Don't turn family business into a lawsuit." I looked at Mason and said, "Do not put my name on anything." He raised his hands. "Relax. Nobody's putting your precious name on anything." The word precious told me more than the denial. I left early. In my car, I held the silver key in my hand and remembered Nora's note. Never let your name open a door you did not inspect. At the time, I thought I was angry about the insult. I did not yet know the insult was a preview. The buyer complaint arrived 3 weeks after closing. Once I saw my name on the disclosure packet, I did not call Mason first. I audited. Real estate commission complaint file, listing packet, seller disclosure form, lockbox logs, inspection photos, copied signature source, repair invoices, buyer emails, family group texts, listing screenshots, title file notes, old disclosure checklist. I requested the full complaint packet from the buyer's attorney after identifying myself as the person whose name had been used without consent. The more I read, the worse it got. Mason had disclosed minor prior moisture as repaired cosmetic issue. The inspection photos showed stains around a basement wall that had been freshly painted. There were gaps in repair invoices. Electrical work had been done without a permit, then covered behind new drywall. The buyer packet included a page labeled Broker Disclosure Review, with my name beneath it. My signature had been copied from an old checklist where I had once demonstrated how disclosure review should be documented. A lockbox log showed access under Mason's account and buyer agent access, but nothing tying me to any walkthrough. The listing page had briefly included the phrase, "Family broker backed," then been edited after closing. I found that through an archived screenshot. Then Lauren called me, Mason's wife. She sounded like someone who had been quiet too long and had finally run out of silence. "Olivia, he knew you never agreed," she said. "I told him this was going to explode." She forwarded a text thread. Mason had written to Beverly, "If Olivia's name is on the packet, buyers relax." Beverly replied, "Use it. She'll be mad, then she'll fix it because she won't let a buyer family get hurt." Mason answered, "What if she reports it?" Beverly, "She won't. She cares too much about her license." There it was, the mechanism. My standards became the trap. My care for buyers became the hostage. My family had counted on my professional ethics to clean up what their dishonesty created. I sent one formal non-consent statement that night to the real estate commission, the title company, my brokerage compliance office, and the buyer's attorney. I stated that I had not acted as broker, supervising broker, disclosure reviewer, agent, consultant, or license support for Mason Hart's transaction, and that any use of my name, license number, professional bio, signature, or implied review had occurred without my consent. I attached my written refusal, the copied signature comparison, lockbox records, archived listing page, and Lauren's messages. One statement. One boundary. One silver key on my desk beside the first honest record in the whole file. At 10:41 p.m., my mother called. She did not say hello. "What did you tell the commission?" I answered on speaker because Nora was sitting across from me by then, calm, alert, and more dangerous to lies than any shouting person could ever be. "The truth," I said. Beverly inhaled sharply. "Olivia, do not ruin your brother over paperwork. He used my license on a buyer disclosure packet." Mason grabbed the phone next. "You are making this sound like fraud." "The complaint did that before I did." My father came on with his old tired line. "Stop turning family business into a lawsuit." Nora wrote that down on her legal pad, and I almost smiled, despite everything, because my family had no idea how often they confessed inside their favorite phrases. Then my mother made the mistake that exposed the whole thing. The buyers were promised you reviewed the disclosures because it made them feel safer. There it was, promised, reviewed, safer. Not mistaken, not vague, sold as reassurance. I said, so Mason sold my name along with the house. My mother started crying. His children need that money. He is building generational wealth. Family wealth does not outrank buyer safety. Mason snapped, you don't even know those buyers. They bought a house under my name. My father said, you always choose rules over blood. I touched the silver key. No, I choose records over lies. I gave them 72 hours. Remove my name and license from every file. Correct buyer disclosures. Notify the title company. Disclose unpermitted work. Refund any broker-backed fee claims. Preserve listing records. Sign a no-credential use agreement. Beverly whispered, fix it. I said, I am. Then I hung up. The smear campaign began before sunrise. Beverly posted in the family group that I was choosing paperwork over Mason's children. She told relatives I was jealous because Mason was building wealth while I only sold houses for other people. She told church friends that I was trying to destroy a father's chance to leave something for his kids because I could not celebrate success I did not control. Mason posted a vague caption under a photo of him holding a sold sign. Some people build, some people attack builders. Investors he barely knew commented with fire emojis. I saved every screenshot. Nora told me, do not argue with people who confuse captions with records. Still, I almost softened that afternoon. That is the part people do not understand. Evidence does not erase conditioning. I thought about Mason's children. I thought about the Shaw family, already moved in emotionally, if not fully settled physically. I thought about Priya standing with her little daughter beside that bubbling wall, wondering whether the person named in the packet had failed them. I thought about my relatives calling me bitter. I thought about Mason losing money and Beverly making that my identity for the rest of my life. Then I opened the buyer's photos again. Water staining behind fresh paint, a loose outlet near a child's room, a handwritten note from Priya that said, we trusted the packet because it looked professionally reviewed. That sentence made the choice clear. Buyer trust is not a family resource. It belongs to the people taking the risk. The private truth room happened at my apartment table the next evening. Mason arrived first, angry enough to look brave. Beverly came behind him in a cream sweater and tears already prepared. Grant followed with his usual expression of disappointment in the person who noticed the problem. Lauren came too, which made Mason's confidence flicker. Nora sat beside me. On the table were the buyer complaint, disclosure packet, copied signature page, old disclosure checklist, archived listing screenshot, lockbox logs, repair invoice gaps, Lauren's text thread, the celebration dinner audio, Nora's note, and the silver house key. My mother looked at the table and said, "This is excessive." "No," I said. "This is what a file looks like when people stop hiding parts of it." Mason sat down and said, "You gave me advice." "Advice is not broker review. You helped me understand disclosures and told you not to use my license." Beverly cut in. "You should be proud he wanted your expertise attached." Nora spoke before I could. "Expertise cannot be attached like a sticker after someone refuses." Beverly looked at her. "And you are?" "The broker who trained Olivia to treat buyers like people, not obstacles." That silenced the room for one clean second. I placed the copied signature beside the old disclosure checklist. Same line pressure, same angle, same little break in the H from the old scan. This was copied. Mason looked at Beverly. Beverly looked at Grant. Grant looked at the wall. That triangle told me everything. Mason tried the familiar lie. "You verbally agreed at dinner." I placed the audio recorder transcript on the table, then played the clip from the celebration dinner. Beverly's voice came through first. "You have no kids, Olivia. Let your license help someone building something for an actual family." Then my voice. "My license is not involved in Mason's sale. Do not put my name on anything." The room went still. My refusal had been public, audible, and early. Lauren then slid her phone forward and showed the text thread. "If Olivia's name is on the packet, buyers relax. Use it. She'll be mad, then she'll fix it." My father muttered, "Private messages are not fair evidence." I looked at him. Neither is a private lie on a public disclosure packet. Mason reached for the children next. "If this ruins the sale, my kids lose everything I worked for." "Your kids do not live inside the disclosure packet," I said. "The Shaws do." That was the first time Mason looked truly cornered, not because he suddenly cared about the buyers more, but because the buyer family had entered the room as real people instead of paperwork. Beverly snapped, "You are so cold." I picked up Nora's note and read it aloud. "A broker's signature is not decoration. It tells a buyer someone stood behind the record." Then I said, "I did not stand behind this record." My mother cried harder. "You want him punished." "I want him responsible." My father said, "There is a difference between hiding something and not knowing how serious it is." Nora answered, "A licensed record cannot depend on convenient ignorance." That line cut through the table. I repeated my terms. Correct the file, notify the buyer, disclose unpermitted work, remove my name, preserve records, no credential use. Mason whispered, "If the commission gets involved, I'm finished." I said, "The commission is involved because my name was already there." The Public Truth Room came 3 days later at a real estate commission complaint review and title compliance meeting. Present were the commission investigator, a title officer, my brokerage compliance manager, the buyer's attorney, Nora, Lauren, Mason, Beverly, Grant, and me. Daniel and Priya Shah did not attend, but their attorney brought photos, repair estimates, and the original complaint. The room was plain, almost dull, which made the stakes feel sharper. Beverly wore black like she was attending a funeral for Mason's reputation. Mason kept checking his phone. My father looked irritated that government rooms existed. The investigator opened by saying Mason's compliance response had been frozen after my non-consent statement. Beverly immediately said, "This is a family misunderstanding." I had expected that exact phrase. My mother loved misunderstanding because it turned intent into fog. Mason said, "Olivia helped me throughout the process and then backed away once the buyers complained." The investigator turned to me. "Did you act as broker or broker support for this transaction?" "No." "Did you review the disclosure packet?" "No." "Did you authorize use of your license or signature?" "No." Clean questions, clean answers. The room shifted before Beverly's tears could thicken it. I laid out the written refusal, disclosure packet, copied signature comparison, old checklist, archived listing page, lockbox logs, repair invoice gaps, and Lauren's messages. Nora explained disclosure duty, broker consent, and why a broker's name in a packet can materially affect buyer trust. The title officer confirmed that the file had been flagged once my non-consent statement and the buyer complaint arrived. The buyer's attorney placed photos of the water damage and unpermitted electrical concerns on the table. My clients relied on what appeared to be a professionally reviewed file, he said. Mason said, "The repairs were mostly cosmetic by then." The attorney replied, Water intrusion behind paint is not cosmetic to the family living there. That was one of those sentences that made everyone stop pretending the issue was paperwork. The buyer family was not a concept. They were living in the risk. The face-slap-proof moment came when Mason repeated that I had verbally agreed during the celebration dinner. I played the audio again. My mother's cruelty entered the official room in her own voice. "You have no kids, Olivia. Let your license help someone building something for an actual family." Then my refusal. "My license is not involved in Mason's sale. Do not put my name on anything." The investigator did not react emotionally, which made it worse for them. Then I placed the listing timestamp beside my buyer's safety workshop attendance record. The archived listing naming my license support had been uploaded while I was teaching first-time buyers how to verify broker claims and identify disclosure red flags. The irony sat there without needing decoration. Lauren then confirmed Mason knew I had not agreed. "He said Olivia would fix it if buyers pushed," she said. The investigator looked at Mason. "Were you aware Olivia Hart had not consented to being listed or represented as reviewing broker?" Mason hesitated, looked at Beverly, and said, "I thought she would help once there was a problem." There it was. The entire family system in one sentence. Use me first. Count on my conscience after harm appears. The consequences came in professional language, which is always less dramatic than revenge fantasies and more devastating because it enters the record. The commission removed me as disputed broker from the file and documented my non-consent. Mason's compliance response remained paused, pending corrected disclosures and investigation into unauthorized license representation. The title company flagged the file for irregular disclosure representation. The buyer's attorney demanded formal correction, repair documentation, and disclosure of hidden defects and unpermitted work. Mason had to disclose the issues and negotiate from a much weaker position. My brokerage confirmed my standing because I had reported promptly and provided proof. The local family house flip success feature Mason had been scheduled for that weekend was canceled after the reporter learned there was an active commission complaint. Beverly cried in the hallway and said, "You destroyed his chance." I looked through the glass at Mason signing acknowledgement forms. "No," I said. "I stopped him from selling trust he did not earn." My father said, "You could have handled this quietly." I answered, "Quiet is how buyers got lied to." The fallout was ugly, but not clean. Real life rarely gives clean collapse. Mason did not lose everything overnight. He lost leverage. He lost credibility. He lost the feature. He lost money in corrective negotiations. He had to answer questions from people who used to clap for his sold sign posts. The Shaw family pursued corrections and concessions. Some relatives believed my mother's version for a while. She said I had chosen strangers over blood. I said blood does not live inside walls with hidden water damage. Lauren moved out briefly with the kids after the review. She told me over coffee later that Mason's real addiction was not houses. It was being seen as the man who provides without anyone checking how the provision was built. That sentence stayed with me. It explained more than real estate. It explained our whole family. Nora pushed me to turn the experience into something useful. At first, I resisted. I did not want to become the broker whose brother stole her license. Nora listened, then said, "Then do not teach betrayal. Teach buyers how to check the door before they walk through it." So we created the Silver Key Buyer Safety Guide with a local housing nonprofit. It started as a handout and became a workshop series for first-time buyers, single buyers, immigrant families, and anyone tempted to trust a friendly seller with a polished story. We taught people how to verify broker claims, check permit history, read seller disclosures, ask for repair invoices, recognize flipped home red flags, examine title documents, identify vague phrases like family broker backed, and understand that a license number means nothing unless the license holder actually participated. The first line of the guide was Nora's sentence. A broker's signature is not decoration. It tells a buyer someone stood behind the record. The second line was mine. A real estate license is not a family favor. At the first workshop, I placed the silver house key on the table. A young father asked why I used a key as the symbol. I said, because keys should open homes, not hidden problems. Priya Shah came to one workshop months later. She sat quietly near the back and did not speak until afterward. She told me the corrected repairs had taken longer than expected, but her daughter was finally sleeping in the bedroom they had been afraid to use. Then she said, I blamed you at first because your name was there. Now I understand that was the point. That sentence almost broke me. Not because it absolved me, because it named the cruelty exactly. My name had been placed where blame would land. That is what families like mine do to competent women. They put us beneath the risk and call it support. The Silver Key Guide grew faster than I expected. Buyer groups requested copies. A legal aid clinic used the disclosure checklist. Nora and I added a section called, When a Seller Says Their Relative is Licensed. We wrote the question every buyer should ask. Is that licensed person actually representing this transaction? And can I verify that directly? Simple, powerful, often skipped because people are embarrassed to ask. I stopped being embarrassed after my family used my license as a comfort blanket for hidden defects. Mason and I are not close now. We are polite at holidays in the way people are polite when the record has already said what the family will not. Beverly still calls it that sale misunderstanding. Grant still thinks I made it too official. Mason still believes I should have fixed it quietly because, in his mind, I owed him rescue after he created risk. Lauren and I remain careful friends. She once said, You didn't destroy his dream. You made him stop using your name as scaffolding. I kept that one too. I still keep Nora's silver key on my desk. Sometimes before a buyer safety workshop, I pick it up and feel its smooth edges in my palm. I remember the celebration dinner, my mother's voice, Mason's smirk, the buyer complaint, Priya's photos, Lauren's texts, the commission investigator's clean questions, and the moment my brother finally admitted he thought I would help once there was a problem. They did not think I agreed. They thought I would absorb. A family that calls your boundaries selfish while hiding housing risk under your license does not want help. It wants credibility without consent. My clean name was not his disclosure packet. My childless life was not spare capacity for his wealth plan. My signature meant a buyer could trust the record, and I will never let anyone turn that trust into family currency again. If your family used your professional name to sell safety they had not earned, would you still call that support? And if the silver key that once marked your first honest closing became the tool you used to help other buyers unlock the truth before inheriting someone else's hidden damage, would you put it away to keep family peace? Or would you lay it on the table and ask exactly who stood behind the record?